You're listening to the Hello DTC show presented by Beaconstac, a show where champions from consumer brands reveal their secret sauce for growth. This is where the best DTC stories are narrated, from one successful brand to another.
Hello everyone, thanks for listening to the Hello DTC show. I am Monika and I work with Beaconstac, a platform that helps CPG brands connect their physical commerce to their online worlds. The best way to accelerate organic growth is by creating moments for customers. Did I come up with these wise words? Well, I wish I had, but no. This comes from the man who obsessed about customer experience, so much so that the brand saw a 1200% increase in sales from CX alone. The brand I'm talking about is Olipop. Olipop, if you've not heard about it, which I know is very unlikely, is a delicious sparkling tonic made of prebiotics, botanicals, and plant fibers to support your gut. Basically, it's a new kind of soda. And the man who established CX as a marketing channel for Olipop, Eli Weiss, is on the podcast today. Welcome to the podcast, Eli.
Thank you so much for having me, Monika.
So before we dive into CX and Olipop, I honestly have been following you on LinkedIn for over a quarter now. And each and every post is better than the previous one, and all of them are so insightful. I'm looking to understand, how do you come up with these fantastic posts so often? Are you taking notes through the day? How do you plan them?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's very similar to what happens on Twitter, where it's me being incredibly frustrated. And I think of something where I say, this is not possible that everyone's seeing this so differently than me. And I kind of toss it on either LinkedIn or Twitter to get a little temp check and understand, like, does this make sense, or are we all just in denial about this? And that's kind of where my takes come from. But a large amount of them are just things that I learn, not myself, but I learn as a team. You know, we're operating in a space that's grown so dramatically. Better for you soda, better for you beverages have had such a huge growth in the last 12 months to 18 months, that for us it's just, I feel like we're on the forefront of new things, and it's incredible to be able to learn and share it to a crowd of people that really enjoy it.
So this is very interesting to me, because I've also been trying to post more frequently than what I usually do. And I was hearing Dave's podcast very recently. And he talks about how he takes these audio notes while he's traveling, while he's working with his team, and just doing multiple things, right? And he revisits those notes, clubs them together, and creates a beautiful post out of it. And I was thinking, is that really, the way to go about it? I'm just collecting, those inputs from my LinkedIn and how I can up my game.
Yeah, I think that some people are much more official and legit with it than I am. To me, a lot of it is credit to having a fantastic team, fantastic designers on our team that can take, something that seems insightful, level it up with really good imagery, and people love it. And for us, it's been such a blessing to be able to learn in this space and learn from consumers. And that's honestly our Northern Star has always been the customer. And it's fantastic to be able to consistently learn and also operate in a space where we can move very quickly. That's the beauty of startups, where we can learn something one day and act on it the next. And that like agility has been super helpful for us to grow as a brand.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. So why don't you tell us a little more about the brand Olipop and what you absolutely love about it?
Yeah, I have been in early stage startups for a bunch of years now, and there's something about being in a team of people that are genuinely caring and want to make the world a better place. And I know that's something a lot of startups say, but the culture at Olipop is second to none. The team is just fantastic, really kind, genuine, helpful, authentic, and full of empathy. So for me, getting what I want to do done, which is creating moments for customers, but also reinvigorating what customer experience means, it has to be done at a brand that really, really genuinely cares. Like Olipop, a bit about Olipop, soda has been the biggest consumption of sugar in the US and across the world for so many years now. And aside from the ton of sugar, there's really no function in drinking that kind of beverage. So Olipop's really trying to change that by bringing a beverage that has 9 grams of fiber, prebiotic fiber, which is extremely helpful and supports gut health and benefits the microbiome, as well as obviously 2 to 5 grams of sugar and plant botanicals. So it's been a little bit over a year, and it's honestly been a blast. I've never learned so quickly and been part of something so huge before. So it's a blessing every day.
Right, that's amazing. And like I said, I've also been following you on LinkedIn, and the description that you have on LinkedIn is very unique, and I've really not seen that sort of a combination before. And the reason I say that is because it reads leading on customer experience, retention, and SMS marketing initiatives. I've often seen customer experience and retention being clubbed, but SMS marketing in the mix was a pleasant surprise to me. I'm wondering how do you operate, and what is the model that Olipop takes when you consider a position like this?
Yeah, I think that the conversation when I started at Olipop was a lot about what does the future of customer experience look like. Traditional companies have taken customer support, customer experience, customer success, whatever it is, and they've always been the group of people that put out fires, and it was always the first team to be outsourced. And we had a vision to do things really differently at Olipop, and Olipop is a brand that wanted to be huge in viewing things from a customer centric lens, but that means listening to the consumer, meeting them where they are, being the voice of the consumer in every conversation across function, and that's kind of customer experience. We had a bigger idea and vision for it. And then broadly, I think the important thing is that viewing retention in the lens of the customer and consistently asking 3 questions: why are they here, what would make them leave, what would make them stay forever. These are very basic questions, but that's kind of the only answer to that question comes from the customer experience team, comes from the people that are talking to the consumer every day. So that's kind of like old school retention was always waiting for customers to leave, spending a lot of money again to acquire them back, spamming them with a ton of emails. So that's number one, right? CX and retention kind of go hand in hand, in my opinion, where it's like if you listen very closely to why they're here and why they leave, you have a better understanding as to what can you do to make them stay forever. On SMS, it's such an intimate tool that can be used to either bring consumers very close to a brand and deliver incredible experiences, or used as a sale slash discount tool that does revenue but defeats the larger medium of the tool, the intimacy and the community and the two-way communication of it. So when I started, we were working with Postscript, and I saw what this tool was, and I was so excited to be able to do something larger with it. And when I relayed my excitement around it, they said, well, you have a vision, take it and run. And I think that says a lot about Olipop as a brand, where it's, give it a shot, go. If you make mistakes, we'll figure it out. But, for us on SMS, we've really been very, very, very straightforward about not spamming and not sending too many messages. And it's kind of, the jab, right hook, where you send very subtle amount of messages in terms of how often you send, but when you do send, it feels like it matches the channel. And for us, it's like, delivering an exclusive experience on that channel, meaning if somebody follows us on email, gets our emails, follows us on Twitter, follows us on Instagram, and gets our SMS, are they just getting the same discount code on 7 different channels? Or are they really feeling like they're part of something larger? And SMS is like, we were one of the first brands to start launching flavors on SMS first. So if you're part of this exclusive channel, you're part of our quote unquote friend group, you get early access. So it comes with a message from our co-founder and formulator, Ben. And we've done, on our last launch, we've done, $30,000 in revenue in under 30 minutes on that channel. So this is a super intentional channel. And if you use it correctly, it can yield huge wins. and it's been so exciting to kind of try new things and experiment and do what this channel is in my opinion made for.
That's amazing. I think the way you described this, it looks like there's a lot that you can do with SMS. And I think that's a underused channel as of now, because when most brands think, they think of emails, they think of, just creating some sort of a group on Slack, etc., or maybe, Facebook groups. But SMS is not so widely used, and I think that also gives an edge because it's not that widely used.
Yeah, and I think it's a catch 22 because it's not widely used. It's probably the one of the next things to be severely abused. Like everything good, it goes from its not prime time use to being wildly overused. And I've seen a lot of brands that will copy and paste what they do on email to SMS, and I don't think SMS is a substitute for email. I think those are both incredibly important channels. They're both owned channels. Email is the backbone of Olipop as far as communication. SMS is a connection tool. SMS is a way to really create a community and intentional messaging around getting people to feel closer to a brand. I think generally, and I've said this before, generally SMS is a medium that most people don't get from a lot of people. Like I don't get text messages from many people. So when you're signing up for a brand's SMS messaging, what are you signing up for? And if it's pitched as a discount and you get the discount, then that's transactional. So how can you view it differently and really deliver on what you sold? And for a lot of brands, they promise an experience, but then when it comes into it, it just ends up being used as a tool because it'll work. It'll get you sales, but then the question is what then? What comes after that? So we've been doing our best to, as much as we'll try new things, we really try to stay to the core values of the channel.
Yeah, it's really not the channel so much, but how you use that channel that ensures success for sure. Cool. So talking about customer experience, I can talk as a consumer, and when I'm on a DTC website, let's say on Casper, I'm not just comparing their website or their experience with, their competitors like Purple or Lisa, but I'm also expecting the user experience I have on something like an Amazon or even Airbnb for that matter, because I'm used to that sort of an experience, and any app or any website that I visit, I would need that sort of an experience there. And because of all of that, CX is definitely getting tough today. But Olipop does this really well, and I'm looking to understand what is the tactical advice, or how do you start building this framework which is retention focused, customer experience focused. How do you build that?
That's an awesome question. And thank you for your kind words about our website experience and customer experience. I think that we've honestly really taken a step back. Olipop started off mostly retail. Just a year ago, we were about 90% retail, 10% direct to consumer, and in the last year or so, we've grown massively on direct to consumer, and now we're 35% of the business. And what we've done when we zoomed out was, what does the perfect experience look like, not just in terms of how we solve problems, but how we view every single touch point as a customer and say, how can we meet, or at least meet or even exceed expectation at every touch point. So that starts from, where does a customer discover your brand, whether it's in the messaging on the ad, or the billboard or whatever it is. And then what's the website experience like? How difficult is it for the consumer to learn about your product? How difficult is it for them to purchase a normal order without getting tossed into a subscription, without being upsold 97 times and cross-sold and promoted to? And then, the next step, right? Like, what does shipping and delivery look like? If you promise 2 day shipping, are you actually shipping it in 2 days, or are you just promising to get the customer past the hurdle and they'll never be back? So really, really setting expectations that we can at least meet, at best exceed, is really the goal for us. So we don't overpromise. If there's a delay, we share that. Looking at returns, if it's applicable to your brand, what does that look like? How can we do that as seamless and easy as possible? Because these are all things that you don't focus on if you want a customer for once. You focus on if you want the customer to return. And then obviously customer service, right? Like when there is an issue and the consumer reaches out, do you promise that you'll get back to them as soon as possible and then they wait 4 days? Or do you let them know that you'll generally hear back in 24 to 48 hours and get back to them in 12 hours or 12 minutes or wherever you are as a team? But exceeding or meeting expectations is the most important. And then obviously core to any retention strategy is product. Like if you promise a product that is the most high quality in the universe and then somebody gets it and it feels like a pile of garbage, they won't be back. So you got them on one order, but then you're not building a consumer slash user experience strategy that's really optimal for retention. I think that's kind of the zoomed out view is every single part of the consumer journey really has to vibe with what you promised. In order to get people to come back.
That's actually a great 30,000-foot view of what customer experience should really look like. But if we had to zoom in further, and like you said, the first touch point is discovery. Where do you discover that brand? Is it a retail store? Is it, a social media post? Or is it just a friend who told about, the brand and the person landed on the website? It could be any of these, right? So how does and what are the points to keep in mind when you're talking about that first touch point, that discovery point? How do you optimize customer experience for that?
I think that's an awesome question. The main focus for me is when you think about that zoomed out lens and you think about how is somebody discovering, top of funnel, what does that look like? I think the most important thing is that you should not be optimizing for clicks. You should be optimizing for conversions. And that's not a marketing tip. That's a customer experience tip, meaning if your ad is pitching something that your product won't deliver on, that your website won't deliver on, you're just getting clicks and you're getting people into a funnel that's not properly optimized for purchase and repurchase. So I think that the important part is optimize your ad for the product that you're selling, and don't just promise a bunch of things. Make sure that what you're promising is what consumers are getting. What we've seen is that sometimes the most beautiful pour shots will get us more sales and they'll get us repurchases, whereas a user generated photo, UGC, does much better for us in terms of getting repeat purchases because it feels like something that is more real, right? It's like when you get the product, you hold it in your hand and it looks the same way as it looked when the consumer was holding it in their hand in that photo. So it's really, really consistently thinking about what is the customer expecting and make sure that you can get their experience as close to the experience that they're expecting. I think that's like the gold spot to be in terms of getting a purchase and getting a repurchase.
So while you were talking, I was thinking, so when you say that, the copy on the ad should not overpromise and underdeliver, does that mean you are involved in the copywriting process, or you're overlooking it when, someone is writing that copy for the social media ad? Or is it more like, the entire company works with that mindset and it's so much more than just one person giving feedback?
That's a good point. I'd say it's a little bit of both. I'd say that on any larger activation or any large marketing materials, we'll definitely have someone from CX in a marketing meeting, looking over the copy, making sure that it makes sense and consumers would get it. And then on every other ad, I'd say that we'll see it once it goes live, and if there are any comments we'll have, we'll share it with them. But I think the team is definitely very, very well versed in like what our product is, and every copywriter has a deep understanding in what we're promising and what we're delivering. They've gotten the product, they've purchased on the site, and they really have a deep understanding in like making sure that we are promising exactly what we're delivering. And I think that's core to a successful marketing strategy.
That's great tactical advice. So let's take the next step. So let's imagine a user bought the Olipop bottle at a retail store versus there's another user who heard about the brand from a friend and then landed on your website. how do you make sure that these two users have a consistent brand experience? Because that also in the long run has an important part to play in customer experience, right?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question. As brands go omni-channel and think about being in retail and thinking about being in wholesale, like when we're sold at a coffee shop and where we're sold in a stadium or wherever we're sold, we consistently think about what do we even have to lean on when it's just a can in a store. And I think that kind of goes back to basics and what are we building? We're a team of people that genuinely care really, really deeply. And we want people to have a healthier alternative to nostalgic and indulgent things they grew up with. And I think, what we've seen time over time is when people pick up a can in a retail store and we ask them, why did you take that can? They say, I don't know. It just felt very intentional. It felt like a product that people really deeply cared about when they created. And then the goal is once they pick up that can, they'll Google us, and anything they'll read about us will be consistent with what they see on the can. It'll be consistent with what they get from the label and what they get from the copy. It'll feel like it's the same company. It won't feel like they just picked up something that was bought and sold 9 times until it got there. And I think that's the important part. And then we're pretty fluid in the way some people will find us on direct to consumer on our site and then purchase in Whole Foods when they see us next. And then vice versa. People will find us in Whole Foods and decide they want a case and hop on our subscription and purchase there. So the key is really delivering the same experience and making sure that we can seamlessly get people from point A to point B and back without feeling like they missed a step.
I think of an anecdote, and maybe this is very useful at this point, which is, so Nestle Waters is a Beaconstac customer, and very recently we were looking at what their use cases, and we were chatting with their marketing team to understand what they're really doing. And what they've done is very simple. They've just put a QR code on their packaging, which is their water bottles. And whether you land on their landing page and get it from there, or if you pick that water bottle from, a retail store, it does precisely the same thing, which is it tells you where that water came from, which spring delivered that water. And I think that's a fantastic way of just maintaining that experience, right? And they do report that their customer experience has definitely enhanced after, the kind of campaign that they've run.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I think the goal with everyone this omni-channel and in a store as well as online, the goal always is how can we make it feel super seamless? Like how do we make sure that customers feel the same thing when they purchase on our site as they do when they purchase in store? And for us, when we're selling direct to consumer, we're controlling the entire journey. Like we have our hand on every single part of the journey, and obviously that's great. But then, what do you do when it's on the shelf? So I think that's an important thing to think about as brands grow in retail as well.
Right, right. And let's talk about the website, because that's the natural next step, right? So that's again one of the most critical touch points in the customer journey. And I saw that Olipop recently revamped their website. So can you walk us through what a CX director's brief was to the person who was working on the website?
Yeah, I've I'll say a few things. Number one, Melanie, who's our e-commerce manager, is an absolute genius when it comes to creating fantastic experiences, and we worked with an agency that was fantastic as well. I'm I've spent a lot of time at small stage startups, so I have a kind of understanding around what a user experience, what a good user experience is, as well as what I would want and wouldn't want on a website. So my view on this was like, how do we make this as seamless as possible? How do we make sure consumers understand what we're selling, why we're selling it the moment they hit the landing page or the moment they hit the home page? The subscription page was something I cared deeply about on our site. Like, how can we make this really, really clear as to what we're delivering that's more than just a one-time purchase? And then, something else that's slightly, off topic, but was very important to me was I wanted the default purchase to be a one-time purchase. A lot of D2C brands have kind of defaulted to subscription. And while it does get more people on subscription, it ends up with people feeling like they were tricked into it. And for us, these little things are things we think about. Whereas if our subscription offering is strong enough, people will find it and we'll share it in our emails and we'll talk about it, but we're not going to push you into that. So that's kind of my view on the site was like, how can we make this incredibly clear, incredibly easy to use, and make sure the consumers, every question, the questions that we had asked, that we heard consumers ask a bunch of times, we made sure those questions went to our team and our agency to properly understand the issues consumers are having and bake that in on their end to UX and UI and design and all that fun stuff. But it's been exciting and I think it came out awesome. So.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that the default is one time and not subscription. So we'll get to that in a bit, because there's a lot that we want to talk about subscription based models, and we'll talk about that. But the next step in the customer journey is really the product packaging, right? And I've seen you talk a lot about adding these small nuggets of delights in the packaging. You talk about adding stickers or just shipping plans with the order. How important do you think product packaging is in building those unique experiences for your consumers?
Well, I think this is it's a good question. It probably differs slightly from brand to brand depending on what you're selling. But I think that there's a fine line between, providing a fantastic experience and then excess, where you just send a huge box with a bunch of packaging and not sustainable and not pleasant and not easy to recycle and all that other stuff. So I guess it's kind of like back to the original framework, where how can we make consumers feel special and feel like they're getting something that is at least as good or better than their site. And sometimes it's as easy as putting a little card, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a free book or a free anything. It can just mean something that makes you feel special. And talking about subscription, we've seen an insane amount of growth over the last year or so on subscription, and we'll get into subscription, like you said, in a little bit. But I think the most interesting point about subscription was we consistently asked people what they'd be interested in. And, one of the things we offered was stickers. We have a community of a few thousand people that we survey and get insights from. And when they mentioned that, we were kind of shocked, like, is that so meaningful? And apparently to consumers it was. And when we sent it out, we saw it brought a ton of delight and people shared it. And we said, okay, instead of putting something huge and an extra box and an extra big magazine, we'll put something simple that feels special. And aside from being, really beautifully, thoughtfully designed stickers, we also will sometimes put like our next flavor launch will be as a sticker in their box. So the subscribers will know what the next flavor is before anyone else. So thinking through these little moments of delight has been super interesting, and it's amazing to see consumers love it. But bottom line, I think, walking a fine line between over delivering, being thoughtful, but not excess has been the line we've stayed on. So something thoughtful like a card or a sticker that feels like it wasn't produced in mass and sent to everyone in the universe. feels good.
So what do these stickers say? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so some of these stickers are, they look like a small Olipop can. So with every order, you'll get a different flavor, and it's kind of like a collect them all, kind of like the nostalgia of the cereal boxes that we had growing up here, where it was like you get a toy in each cereal box, and you eventually when you get all, you feel very good about it. So it can be something as simple as that. It can be something playful. We have some cute ideas coming up for the summer, but something that you'll feel proud to hang up on your fridge is kind of the idea and the vision for it. So it's been exciting for sure.
So you're really tying the gamification experience along with the packaging. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So the most awaited topic that we've been pushing for the end, which is the subscription-based model, right? So We've seen through the pandemic it's been very beneficial, and even post pandemic it's very relevant, and it's definitely here to stay. But subscription models is not equally successful for every brand, and I've realized this after talking to some of the growth champions and different DTC brands, and they talk about how the subscription model does not work for them versus there are others who talk about how it's getting them the growth that they had anticipated. But what's the trick to getting it right? How do you know whether a subscription model is going to work for your brand or not? Because for you, it's definitely working very well. So how did you crack that?
Yeah, I think that's an amazing question. I can definitely agree with your point that some people have incredible success and some people will feel like they're pulling teeth. I think they're on a more tactical and practical level, I think that it's important to check buying behavior and see if consumers are buying it on a pattern, or at least if consumers are purchasing it often enough for it to fit into their lifestyle as a subscription, right? It's like, you know, having Netflix for 1 month is not super meaningful if you watch it 10 times a week, but if you're watching it for one show, it would make sense. So viewing the behavior of the consumer, for us, we kept seeing that people were constantly repurchasing, and it was whether it was once in 2 weeks or once in 4 weeks or once in 6 weeks, that was a consumer behavior we saw, and that definitely started got the gears moving as to like, okay, let's create this. I think for me personally, I hate the idea of a subscription. I hate the idea of, the old school subscription where it was like you had to call 19 times in order to cancel it, and you had to send a letter in the mail, and you had to send an email, and they're only open 8 to 8, and even when they're open it's a 40-minute hold time, and that was just insane to me. So subscriptions of yesteryear were you feeling locked up and you feeling like you got a discount and now you're stuck here. So that was our goal, was like, how can I make a subscription, or how can we as a team create a subscription that we feel like we would sign up for? um, so that's, number one is remove all the friction around subscription, make it super easy to cancel. You get a text before your order ships out, so you don't feel like you are alarmed by the email that was stuck within the 100 other spam emails in your inbox. You get a text saying your next order will ship in 3 days. You can swap your flavor, you can skip your order, you can cancel it all through text. You don't need to call, you don't need to email. So that's number one. Number two is, how can we make this special for the consumer, right? It's like, on our end, we get this monthly recurring revenue. What do they get? So our steepest discount ever goes to subscribers. They get first dibs on new flavors. They have an exclusive email that they get priority support. So thinking through all these things is number one is, how can we remove friction? Number two, how can we create a better experience is kind of the framework. But then, not to go totally off topic, but I think the other really, really important thing is people subscribe to a brand they feel like they can rely on. Um, and that comes from building a brand that not only obsesses about customer experience, but really, really does their best to deliver experiences that people don't stop talking about. And I think that for us has been wild to do over the last 6 months. Like, I think being able to create moments across our site has definitely brought more awareness to subscription as a model, and brought people into the brand and engage more. And I think that's, I can talk a lot more on how to create those experiences, but I think it's focusing on our subscriber family and focusing on delivering fantastic and amazing experiences is honestly the larger picture on what got us here.
So when we talk about a subscription model, obviously there is a discount attached and there's a benefit attached to it. Of course, there are other benefits also. But how do you decide, or for Olipop, how did you decide what that discount should look like, or at what price should you sell that subscription?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think every brand views discounting and price modeling in their own way. For us, the question was, what is our most steep discount that we can afford to give and still break even, at least. So that's kind of our framework for deciding pricing. And then it has to feel special. So if you're offering, 20% off every day and subscribers are getting 20% off, there's nothing special about it. So it really builds into what the broader strategy around discounting is, and making sure that your discount around subscription is A, sustainable as a brand, and B, make sense for a consumer to get excited for.
Awesome, awesome, understood. And you earlier in our conversation also mentioned that the default is one time and not subscription. Why? I mean, that's not the most obvious choice for any brand, right? But I'm sure there is a reason behind it, and we would love to know that.
Yeah, so the reason behind it is I've chatted with way too many CX teams in the direct consumer space. And what I consistently heard is that when they default to subscription, they had a bunch of consumers not realizing that they signed up for a subscription. As clear as you make the branding, the default on consumer psychology is that you're purchasing something once and not multiple times. So as clear as we can make it, I wanted to make sure consumers two things. Number one, understand the value of a subscription, and it'll be there as an option, and it'll say you're saving money, and you'll see it all. But two, subscription is a larger commitment. Subscription means that you've tried the product, you love it, and you want to get closer to the brand. You want to feel like you're part of the subscription family. And for us, we're not rushing people into that. If they try the product, they purchase it, we'll send them an email letting them know about it. But ultimately, it's there when consumers want it, and we'll make it a very great program. But we're not trying to trick people into it to grow metrics on 1 month and see it drop in a few when they realize and they drop out. So
That's amazing. That's a very fresh take on how subscription models should work. And I'm thinking, so what I'm hearing is a lot of customer-centric measures being taken. But how do you quantify this customer experience? Is there a way in which you're measuring it? You have spoken about CES score on some of your LinkedIn posts. Can you break that down for us? How does that work? How do you calculate that?
yeah, no, of course. CES score is customer effort score, and I discovered that reading a book a couple of years back called The Effortless Experience, where essentially, based on a bunch of Harvard studies, consumers are happiest when they can get their issue resolved with the least amount of friction. So essentially, in each email, there's a survey on the bottom that says, it was super easy to get my issue resolved today, and then you can agree, somewhat disagree. And that's kind of the goal is seeing how we can make it extremely frictionless and effortless to get something resolved. And for us, our goal is to stay in the 90s, and we've stayed in the 90s score or throughout the I think since I've joined. But the other thing we look at is NPS. We look at Net Promoter Score as a broad measure on what every part of our business looks like, but then we segment it down to once you tell us if you're 0 through 10, we'll ask based on what parts of your experience did you choose that score, and we'll segment it based on the people that chose a 10 on customer experience or a 0 on customer experience. We'll segment that out as well. But I think that the other last thing I'd say is that customer experience, people often obsess about the metrics, but sometimes don't understand that the basic idea of providing a fantastic customer experience is realizing that you won't always be able to track word of mouth. You won't always be able to view it as a pure marketing tool. But what you do know is if somebody did something like that for you, you'd be blown away and tell everyone. And a great example of that is, we had somebody reach out last week that they had huge flooding in their house and wanted to put their subscription on hold because their entire house was flooded, and they sent us a photo of it, and I was blown away. And right away, my teammate who was responding to the email said, like, what should we do? Like, we have to do something. And the question we both asked ourselves is, what would a best friend or a family member do? And her idea was amazing, was like, let's send this family dinner. And we sent them a full dinner from Olipop and canceled their subscription. So these are things that aren't necessarily scalable, right? And that's the beauty of it, is you're doing things that aren't scalable, so consumers know that this isn't something you do for everyone every night, but it's a real way to make sure that they probably won't stop talking about this brand forever. And that's the beauty of doing things that you can't necessarily always measure and that you can't necessarily always scale, but are so amazingly special. And that's really what I'm here for. So this really makes me feel great and fulfilled and excited about the future.
Do things that don't scale. I think that's amazing. That echoes with something I read very recently. So I was reading a growth story from Airbnb, and they talk about, the CEO basically talks about how in the initial days they would send these professional photographers to these B&Bs to click pictures because they wanted like these really good looking pictures up on their website. And he talks about how he knew in the beginning that this is not something that could be scalable, but he wanted to do it in the beginning because that would really move the needle. And it totally echoes with what you just said, which is do things that don't scale.
And yeah, no, that's amazing. It's so special, and I think that's where the magic really is. And I think what people struggle with is that they have a problem with how do we do things that don't scale. And this might be a hot take, but usually the issue is management and corporate culture, not creativity and execution. I think if you hire, the people that you hire, if you hire people that really think differently and care deeply and empower them to make moves that bring people joy and are genuinely kind, those things that don't scale feel 10 times as good. And it doesn't have to be to everyone, but creating those moments, not tracking them, just being human with them is really what builds magic. And Airbnb, is a perfect example of, they did that at the beginning. They realized it doesn't scale, took some time off, and now they're doing that again, where they'll send a photographer to your house, and they figured out eventually how to scale it 5, 7, 8 years later. But the beauty of doing things when you can and not scale, and understand that this is what creates brand affinity and makes people fall in love with the brand. For us, it's like, we can't send everyone a $60 plant if they spent $35 on soda. Like, that wouldn't make sense, but we can do it to enough people to create excitement and really, really show that we care and we appreciate people. So that's kind of the middle ground of doing things that don't scale in a sustainable way.
Yeah, very well said, very well said. And I think we're running out of time. There's a lot that I would like to chat about, but I think that's how much time we have. It was really great talking to you. This was very, very insightful. Thanks
so
for
great.
doing this.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure. And anyone that is looking to find Olipop, it's drinkolipop.com, and drink Olipop on all socials. So thank you for having me.